come back to Chanute. As many of you know, I live in Oswego now with my wife Janna, who's here on the front row, and we're excited to be here. It felt good to pull into Chanute this morning and to be back in my hometown. I appreciate the invitation to come here this morning and speak to you and bring what God has laid on my heart. And I was asked to come and share the vision that we have for an organization that we are getting ready to start. It's something that God has laid on my heart for a long time, something my wife and I have talked about for a long time. And in many ways, you guys inviting me to come here this morning, since this is actually the first time that I've got to speak publicly about it. In many ways, I told my wife it was kind of like, it reminded me of the time when I learned how to water ski. I made a video about this a couple weeks ago, posted it on the Facebook, but when I was 9 years old, my family and I went on a vacation to Table Rock, and had a lot of family who loved to water ski, and they were trying to teach me how to ski, and I tried on Monday, tried on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each day I failed, and by Friday I was pretty discouraged, and I told my dad, I said, I'm not trying again. I can't do it, I don't want to do it. We got out in the boat, and I was kind of whining around, crying a little bit, and he told me I was going to try, and I told him I wasn't going to do it, and he picked me up and threw me out of the boat into the water, and I tried again, and I did it that day, and I skied about a half mile, and I thought it was so much fun, and I loved it, and so today I guess I'm kind of getting thrown out of the water and publicly speaking about something God has laid on my heart to do for a long time. And so thank you for having me here this morning. There are two things that I feel like this morning that have made a huge difference in my life. One is the love of God. At a very young age, I learned that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. And that has just been such an important truth in my life, and I know it is for many of you too, that God gave us a Savior. And in Romans 5:8, we read that God demonstrated his love for us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Sometimes I talk to kids at schools and at FCA events and things like that, and many of them have questions about whether God truly loves them or not. And I tell them, you know what? God chose to prove his love to you, to show his love to you in the fact that he gave Jesus to us, to die on a cross, to shed his blood so that we could be forgiven and have hope of eternal life. So if you ever question and wonder, does God love me? We really need to look no further than that. He proved his love toward us, and while we were yet sinners, he gave Christ to us to die on a cross so that we could have hope of eternal life. And as I sit before you this morning, I honestly can only say that, I would not have been able to make it through many of the things that I've made it through in life had I not known and experienced God's love personally. And I hope that this morning that you can say that same thing as well, that God's love has made a big difference in your life. The second thing I thought about was that the love of other people has made a big difference in my life. Think of parents and family, my wife, friends, sometimes complete strangers. The way that they have loved and accepted me has made a huge difference. Many times it's because of the love that God has shared with them that they've extended their love to me. But as I look back on it, I think it is amazing that the type of love, the unconditional love that they have given me and how it's affected me has really encouraged me and inspired me to do a lot more than I ever thought that I possibly could. I want to take you back for a minute to 1991. How many of you remember 1991? It was about 2 years ago. For most of us, we probably say that our bodies worked a lot better back then, right? I know mine did. That was the summer I became paralyzed. immediately after I became paralyzed, I noticed an amazing thing. People began to call and send cards and letters and make visits to the hospital. People began to do fundraisers here in this community. There were churches, there were schools, organizations, bars. It just seemed like everybody poured out their love to me and my family. That helped, so my family was able to take off of work and be able to come and visit the hospital and spend time with me. It also helped so that I was able to get a wheelchair, much like the one that I sit in today, where I blow and suck into this straw to make it go, and also get a vehicle that I was able to get in and out of it. So people poured out their love upon me and my family shortly after I became paralyzed, and I'll never forget that. I tell people sometimes that in the hospital we would spend sometimes a good part of our day just opening up the cards and letters. Sometimes I'd get 50 to 100 cards each day. And I tell people, young people don't get this, but that I felt like Glenn Campbell, that old song, The Rhinestone Cowboy. He was getting cards and letters from people he didn't even know. And that's kind of how I felt many days. But I was so overwhelmed and so blessed by the love and support of other people, and the way that I have experienced love from them has made a big difference in my life, and it's one of the reasons why I am here today talking about the things I'm going to be talking about. But one of my first desires after coming home from the hospital, the spinal cord hospital in Denver, Colorado, where I spent several months just learning how to adjust and adapt to being paralyzed, is that I wanted to give back to my community in some way. I wasn't sure how that was going to happen, but in 1995, I found that opportunity at the Cherry Street Youth Center and at Alcott School. As many of you know, I tutored in Margaret Bedeau's classes there for a lot of years, mostly with 4th and 5th graders, and most of the time I helped them with their math, and I suppose that's Mary Dawson's fault, because she helped me become a pretty good math student back in middle school. But working at Cherry Street and Alcott for so many years gave my life a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning that I would have never found any other way. I wasn't sure what I could do after I became paralyzed because of being so limited, but I found very quickly that I could be a mentor and be a tutor and be an influence in the lives of young people. And as I sit here before you this morning, I tell you, I still have that desire to give back in some way to, in whatever way that I can, and not only to young people, but also to, as I grow older, I find that there are just many people that God lays in my heart. And one group of people is those people who really go through some rough, unwanted circumstances and find themselves in situations much like I did. For those of you that don't know, I became paralyzed in July of 1991 from a diving accident, and that accident left me paralyzed from the shoulders down. And I will tell you that I do have some books that are available here today. They're free. I just want you to take one and read it if you want to know more about my story, because I know that in about 20 or 30 minutes that I have to share with you guys today, there's no way that I'll be able to share with you all of my story and all of what God has done, but I do want you to know that we have some books, and they're available for you to take and to read, or if you just have somebody that you want to share it with, that you feel like it might make a difference in their lives, feel free to take one as well. So why am I here today? Well, I'm here because I want to give back, and I'm here because that you guys invited me to come and to share the vision that we have for an organization or a foundation that we are starting that's called the Live With It Foundation. Our mission is basically reflected in the name, to live with it. Started from a story that many of you may have heard before. I was sitting in the backyard of my mom's house, watching my little 3-year-old brother James as he was playing in the sandbox, and a bird flew by and dropped a big old pile of you-know-what right on my right shoulder. And I hollered out at my little brother James, and I said, "Hey, will you come and help me?" And so he stood up and waddled over there, and I said, "You see that stuff on my shoulder?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, will you wipe it off?" And he was getting ready to reach up there and just about ready to wipe it off, and he stopped and he said, "What is that?" And I just kind of froze. I didn't want to lie to the kid. I said, "Well, I was sitting here watching you play in the sandbox, and this flew out of the sky, so I'm pretty sure it's bird poop." And he wrinkled up his little nose and he jerked his hand back, and he said, "Ooh," he said, "I'm not going to touch that stuff." And so I said, "We'll go in the house and get Mom." And so, moms will do that kind of stuff for you when your brothers won't. So Mom came out and took care of the problem. But before he went into the house, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I'll go get Mom." He said, "But if she doesn't want to wipe it off of there, then you're just going to have to learn to live with it." And this happened just a couple years after I became paralyzed. At a time in my life when I was really struggling to accept the doctor's prognosis that I would never be able to walk again. And it was almost as if God was speaking to me that day through that little 3-year-old and saying, "You know what? There are times in life, even when you might want something to change, that if it doesn't change, if I don't answer your prayers, and if I don't answer them the way that you want, give you what you want, that you have to learn to live with them. You have to learn to accept them and go on and make the most of your life." So our mission for the Live With It Foundation is to encourage and inspire everyone, young and old, of all different abilities, to live with the unwanted circumstances that they may face each and every day. Not only to accept them, but to make the most of their lives, to go on and to do what they can with what they have right where they are. There's a specific group of people that we hope to spend a lot of time reaching out to, and that is those that have suffered from spinal cord injury. Right here in our community, as I look out across the people that I know, we see that spinal cord injury has been, something that has affected several people that I'm sure that you all know. My personal hero, Mike Sutcliffe. Many of you know Mike. Mike's been through a tough time. These last 7 years, he spent most of his time in bed. But when I became paralyzed, Mike was the first guy, one of the first guys there, to just let me know that it's going to be okay. Mike was my announcer, play-by-play guy for all my high school games. And so he's been a part of my life for a long time. I'm sure many of you know Kurt Umbarger and Matt Bowling. And now we have another guy, Chad Graham, who lives here in Chanute. And Chad actually, in 1991, when I went to Denver to the Craig Hospital, he was actually leaving the hospital after his accident when I was getting there. And just a couple years ago, as God would have it, we crossed paths somewhere out in the middle of the country at an Amish auction down by Galesburg. And so we hadn't seen each other for 30 years. So what a story he has. So I want to reach out to people, and many of them are all scattered out across this community in southeast Kansas that I've met and gotten to know over the last 30 years, and many of them are out there trying to work, trying to live their best lives, and trying to learn to live with the unwanted circumstances that they wake up and face every day. So how are we going to fulfill this mission? Well, in many ways it's going to exist. The organization will exist to help me do what I've been doing for many years, and that is to travel around and speak and to share my story with people young and old and with people of all abilities. It'll help me continue to distribute my book and also through social media and other ways, because I feel like God has done a miracle in my life on the inside. For a long time I prayed that God would heal me and I would be able to walk again, but as my dad once said, he said, you know, the greatest miracle that God has done in your life has been what he's done on the inside. Not only has he saved you, but he's also, through his Spirit, given you the power and the ability to wake up every day and have a good outlook on life. And that's not always easy, no matter who we are. But the way God has worked in me and the promises that he has given me is something that is amazing to me. He's given me peace and comfort, a source of hope. And you know, we hear that old song and we talk about the peace that passes all understanding. And I feel like that is truly what God has done in me, and I feel like that's truly what I have to share with the world. So a part of our vision is to reach out to people whose lives have been turned upside down and continue to encourage them to also do what they can with what they have right where they are, to persevere through their trials and tribulations. Like in the book of James in the first chapter, he tells us that our trials and tribulations work to develop perseverance within us. And so we should know and understand and keep in mind that as we go through things in life, they're not a sign that God doesn't love us just because we're going through hardships. It's simply, Jesus said that in this world we're going to have trials and tribulations. But what he tells us is that we need to focus on him and learn to see that all these things work together for good to them that love God and that are called according to his purpose. Specifically, we want to reach out to those people with spinal cord injuries and get to know them, to be a support for them, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, whether that means reaching out to them individually or, as my wife would like to do, start a support group. We want to help connect them with people and organizations that can get them, help get them the things that they need, the things that will improve their quality of life, and things that will just provide them sometimes with a fun experience, like fishing or hunting, or maybe a hobby. Part of our mission is to set up a fund that will help them financially when there are other resources or resources that maybe are not enough or when they're not available. As my wife and I were talking on the way up here, there are a lot of programs out there already that will help people after they become paralyzed, but sometimes there are gaps in between what the government will help with, or the state, and some of the other organizations, and then what people can actually afford. Personally, over the last 31 years, I've learned that there are a lot of things that we need. There are some things that just make our lives a little bit better. I'll give you a few examples of some things that I have in my life that have helped a lot. Margaret was actually a part of a fundraiser a long time ago that her class did to help me get some voice-activated software to put onto my computer. And at the time, that was a big game changer for me because I couldn't really access a computer very well. I had some people that would come over and help put computers together and make it to where that I could use those, and that led to me being able to begin writing, write a book, and to learn how to build websites, which is what I do for work now from home. I actually wrote all my notes today on a computer using voice dictation as well. And so technology has changed. There's a lot of technology out there available. that at my house I can talk to a device and I can turn the lights on. I can, when I get too hot, I can turn a fan on. Get too cold, which usually that's the case. My wife's the hot one, I'm the cold one. I turn the heater on. And so a lot of different things that I can do to be a little bit more independent that I don't have to always ask her to help me with. I have on my wheelchair a little tube that when I blow in, my back door opens. Now we're obviously out of range right now, about 50 miles away, but this is a wonderful thing. I went the first 15 years of being paralyzed with, if I was inside alone, I didn't have any way to go outside. And if I was at home with somebody else, I had to ask them, hey, will you open the back door for me so I can go outside and play, right? And like a little kid. This tube also has a leg bag opener attached to it, to where if I blow in the straw to open the door and go outside, then once I get out there, I suck in the straw and it'll empty my leg bag, which to a person like myself is a pretty big piece of independence. My wife frowns upon it when I'm out the back door and I suck in this tube instead of blow, before I get out the back door, which you can imagine why. And that's only happened like one time, where I emptied my leg bag right in front of the back door instead of blowing in the straw for the back door to open. But I have to concentrate and make sure I do the right thing. It's also kind of nice when my wife's got a load of groceries, I can open the door for her when she comes in the back door. My grandkids think it's pretty cool, and for the longest time we'd make them stand in front of the back door and say "Open Sesame," and I'd blow in the straw, and they had no idea that I was blowing in it. So for a long time, the grandkids just thought we had a magic back door. And once they got to be about 7 or 8, they started figuring out, hey, this only works when Papster's around. Why does it not work when he's gone? And so they've kind of figured it all out at this point in life, but that's pretty fun. But things like door openers and voice-activated software are things that have just kind of made my life better. And there are a lot of things, people have different needs. Look at my friend Chad right here. He has different needs than I do, but part of our vision is to get to know people who have these disabilities and figure out what needs they have, and then connect them with groups that are out there available that might be able to help them. But if there's not enough help available, to be a resource there where we can kind of fill in the gap and be able to help them get things that they need. Because insurance won't pay for things like voice-activated software, door openers, but those are things that just make life better and provide a sense of independence and a sense of help to people like us. One thing that I will mention also is that sometimes people go out of their way just to help you do things that just you enjoy and have fun. Those are worthwhile too. Some of you probably know Kurt Camp from Paradise Adventures out by Altoona. Many years ago, Kurt bought a device that actually mounts on my wheelchair, and it holds a crossbow or a gun. And with that device, I can move it right, left, up, or down with the joystick that sits in front of my chin, or I can blow in another little tube that actually pulls the trigger of that gun or crossbow. And Kurt took me out turkey hunting, deer hunting, several years in a row, and he actually helped me get a couple turkey and get a couple deer. And I was thinking, what an amazing thing. He didn't have to do that, but there are devices that help people like myself just go out and do something enjoyable like that. And so, that's not a necessity, but the thing that I was amazed at is the connection that was formed between me and Kurt, the friendship that we developed. It was amazing, and not only just for me, but also for him. Sometimes the things like that, the friendships we develop during the fun things in life, end up being the opportunity that we need to be able to make those connections, to share God's love with people in such a way that we're there for them during the times when they really need help and inspiration as well. Thank you, Georgia. So where are we planning to go from here with this organization? Well, I told my wife that I feel like Abraham in some ways, how he went out not knowing exactly where he was going, but he was following God. And he took it step by step. And for us, we're taking the first steps. We've met with the accountant. We've got our approval from the state of Kansas, our EIN number, and now we are forming a board of directors, and we are getting approval from the IRS to get a 501c3 status set up. It's kind of like driving a car at night. You drive your car and you turn the lights on, and the lights only shine so far, and you drive a little bit. As you move forward, your lights shine a little bit farther, and they reveal a little bit more of your path. And I feel like that's kind of what it's like to follow God. We take one step and he reveals a little bit more, and we take another step and we reveal a little bit more. I can sit up here and tell you of all the plans that I have, but I lived long enough to know that sometimes our best plans get changed. But we do have a vision, and that vision is to help people that we know that are in need, and to go out and minister in the ways that I've shared with you, and get to know people, and to find out their needs, and to help them with the things that they need. And we know that is our first couple steps. Where it goes from there, we don't know. But if that's all that it is, and all that it ever develops to be, then that's okay too. I feel like I was blessed to be able to be a part of the Cherry Street ministry, because, especially from the very beginning, because in 1995, when we started that ministry, and it was on Barb's heart to get that little house that we started in, who would have ever dreamed that it would develop into what it is today? And so in some ways, we don't know what God is going to do through us and in us, and we don't know what all ways he has in store to work through us in the future. But what we do know is that we just have to take one step at a time and follow him and be faithful in what he has asked us to do. And so we feel like what he has asked us to do at this point is to develop this organization and get it started, and get a fund started where we can start helping people in need. Our goal is to, within the first year, raise $100,000 that we can use to get all of our legal and accounting fees, get that set up and get operating, and then establish a fund that we can use to be able to disperse to the needs of the people that we come into contact with. Every missionary, it seems, has a target audience and a target location, and so ours is really not too much different. We want to target people with spinal cord injuries to begin with, and we want to target those in the state of Kansas. Our start will probably be people right here locally in southeast Kansas, and possibly even in Chanute. We feel like we have to start somewhere, and that's going to be where we start. Our target's going to be real needs, but as I mentioned, there are some things that sometimes are just helpful to people, and that they improve their quality of life. And sometimes there are things that might be just fun to do with them as well. So we're going to try to use those things to help us connect with people and to get to know them. How can you help? Well, by giving them your time, your talents, your treasures. Sorry for that. We're asking that you would spend some time praying and ask that you would pray about how God might like you to be a part of this, to follow what God lays on your heart. We need people who will pray as we set this up and get this established and begin to raise funds. We need people that will be willing to give financially, and I definitely appreciate you guys asking us to be here today to be able to share this vision. And like I said, it is my first time to come and publicly speak about it, and I want you to know that we are doing this because as Christians, we believe that the love that we have been given by God is meant to be shared, with other people. And we're doing this because God first loved us. When we love others, God's love is shown to them, and we believe that it opens the door for us to be able to share that love with them. We believe it has the power to change lives and to help them persevere and make it through their own trials and tribulations. And so I would ask that you would prayerfully consider if you would like to be a part of this and how you would like to be a part of this, because we need the support of people, and we're excited about what God is going to do through us. I'll tell you, just for the last 8 or 9 years, my wife has always said, you're the speaker. I'm just going to be the support system behind. But on the way up here, she said, I think I can get up there with you and speak one day a little bit, talk about, answer some questions. I looked at her and I'm like, who is this wife of mine here? Because she's never ever wanted to do that. So we're excited, to see where God is going to take us, where He's going to lead us, and we thank you so much for having us here today. So thank you.